when legendary Vince Lombardi said, "It's not whether you get knocked down, but whether you get back up." I have a feeling he was talking about my very special guest tonight. I'm talking about Vernon Turner. In his incredible autobiography, The Next Level, a game I had to play, he shares his heart, his soul, and talks all about his experiences. And in his experiences, he wants to make a difference. In fact, one could say he's driven to make a difference. Vernon shares all about the naysayers who said he'd never make it. He fulfills a dream he had as a child to become a professional player. And in addition to that, he manages to keep his family together. When we come back, a play-by-play from this man who's making a difference. Be right back. Welcome, Vernon. I am so delighted that you came to the show tonight. You came all the way from Texas. Good trip?
Yes, Houston, Texas. It was
Texas,
a great trip.
To come to be on the show because you have so many significant messages.
Yeah, you know what? Even today, I scratch my head and I look back and I reflect on my whole life, and it's incredible. So many lessons learned.
So many lessons learned,
yeah.
And what's really beautiful is that you are willing to and compelled to share with others so that they don't have to repeat the same mistakes and that they can learn.
That was one of the major deciding factors of me writing this book, is the fact that I wanted to make sure that I can, I guess, affect as many people as I possibly can in regards to them learning from the things that I've done.
That you went through, and we're going to go through that. I was very impressed, former teacher of English, when I saw all the nouns that used in your book. You say that you felt heartbreak. There was guilt, regret, anger, fear, determination, triumph, relief. And anything I've left out?
No, you got it all. You hit it all. You pretty much hit it all.
Unbelievable array of emotions.
Yeah.
Another thought that I kept thinking about when I read this incredible book is the fact that you ask, how will you be remembered? What mark are you going to leave? What legacy will you have left? Tell me about that.
Well, that has to do with my mother.
Okay, so we'll get to that?
Yeah.
We'll get to that. Yeah. You are a very private person, and to stir up all of these memories, how painful was that for you?
It took me over 30 years to unlock everything that occurred in my past. It took a long time. And it took a bunch of things to get me to the point to get the courage to actually do this. I guess the deciding factor, the ultimate thing, I woke up one day and I asked myself, you know, if I die today, how I'm going to be remembered? With everything that happened, with everything that occurred in my life, all the sacrifices that people made for me, if I die today, how are they going to remember? So I want to leave a legacy that my mom can look down, and my dad, and say, hey, you did it, kid.
So that's what it means for you to pay it forward.
Absolutely. I mean, my thing is that I have to do the right thing by paying this thing forward. My life is an absolute gift. I know everyone said, oh, yeah, my life's a gift, but my life is a true gift.
You're blessed.
I don't have the words to describe. I really don't have the words to describe on how grateful I am to be on this earth, because...
Well, the fact that you came all the way from Texas to come here and that you're speaking across the country, I think we get that idea. All right, let's talk about you growing up. You grew up in Bedford-Stuyvesant.
Yeah.
And tough area, and yet there were a lot of good things about Bed-Stuy.
The thing of it is, it got a bad rap. It really did, because at the end of the day, anywhere you go can be dangerous. You know, the thing of it is that it was just, when you get a predominantly African-American environment, back then in the 70s, 60s, 70s, it's labeled negatively. And that's what Bedford-Stuyvesant was.
That's what it was.
That's what it was. It was 98% African-American.
But you had about 20 cousins. You had your Nana, Eileen, you had your mother, you had your brother. so many cousins. You were playing Scully in the street.
Yeah, yeah.
Scully, Brooklyn game.
Oh yeah, yeah. That game. I fell in love with that game because everyone did it. It was affordable. All you needed was a cap and some wax and a flat surface, and the game was on. So
you didn't have a pool, but you guys improvised. You took
fire hydrants. Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
And so you pretty good time.
Yes.
And then 1973. You know, there were some things going on in the home.
Yeah.
But Nana was taking care of you. She was the cook, in fact, for the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You said she never turned anyone down. So I think that's pretty much where you're getting part of your generous spirit, would you say?
My grandmother,
Nana,
she was
yeah.
5'3", 115 pounds, if she was lucky. And but she had a voice and a heart of the size of a 6'5", 300-pound person. I mean, the
That's
woman.
your role model, right?
Yeah, I mean, she raised 10 kids.
Right. And
she raised 10 kids, and I don't know, countless amount of grandkids. This woman was unbelievable. So that's where I hope I get some of my strength from, and that's from my grandmother. You know, so it was. She was an amazing woman, and she led by example.
All right. Now, your mom did have a problem. She had a problem with drugs.
Yeah.
You were aware of this in 1973 because you were a little child at this time.
I really wasn't. It wasn't until I moved to Staten Island that I found out and realized the extent. Because it was easy to hide it because my mom was hardly ever home.
Right.
You know, it was myself and my brother and my mom.
Sam. Now your mom. Your mom met Sam.
Yeah.
And married.
Well, and the thing of it is I know it's going to be hard for people to believe, but my mom met my stepdad while she was out working the street. She was also a prostitute.
Yes.
And he was a client. I mean,
25 years older than
25 years older.
And white.
And white.
White.
From Staten Island.
Right. So that had to be a little bit of a surprise for you?
Understatement. It was, I was scared for my life.
You have this loud, booming man.
Yeah.
Whom you grow to love and call Dad.
Yeah.
But at this point in your life, loud, booming, Italian guy comes in, right?
And we're talking about the early 70s.
Right.
We had some racial issues back then.
Of course.
You know?
And
so
now you're going to Staten Island, which is not a predominantly African-American area.
Right.
So now you have to fit in there. You have to fit in school. This has got to be incredible for a young child to go through because you have the transition, you have somebody new, you have your mom, you're leaving Nana, you're leaving your grandmother. So...
Yeah, I realized at an early age that I started building up resentment many years early that I didn't even realize. It all started when we left. That's when I started...
back to childhood.
Yes, I started building that resentment towards my mom. So it was a difficult time for me because at the time it was just me and my brother. And we abruptly, I'm talking about within 2 weeks, we were gone. And it
you didn't think that was going to happen?
Oh, no, I just ignored it. Yeah.
And daughter. All right, so now you're in this house and you have a lot of responsibility. You have a grown-up childhood, as you phrase it.
Oh, yeah.
Explain what that consisted of, because you're a young boy.
Yeah. Well, it didn't take long before my mom started reproducing. Right, I mean, she had an additional 3 kids in addition to myself and my brother. Right. So it was 5 of us. And by 9 years old, I was braiding hair, cooking, cleaning, changing diapers, and caregiving at age 9. So I did not have that normal childhood. I didn't know what that was. Sparingly, I got an opportunity to go out and play and do those things. But on a norm, no. I was cooking, I was braiding hairs, I was getting my brothers and sisters ready for the day. And my mom, you know, she was still struggling with those drugs. And I didn't realize how bad it was. I really didn't realize how bad it was until a few further down the line, some years later, that I found out that it was pretty bad.
Well, she was going to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
She was making forays into Brooklyn and getting her drugs there.
Yeah.
And she and Sam are fighting a lot. And you're a child. When you're a child, a fight is a fight, as you say.
Right.
And because of that, you're getting upset. You want to defend your mom, and you want to be protective of her.
Absolutely.
You do get outside, you do play a little ball, and then Mom tells you Sam is going to take you to a game. That was your first exciting football game.
Yeah, I was still
Bring
in
me
that.
back to that. Yeah,
I was still in my resentment mode. I hardly spoke to my stepdad. I wouldn't even look at him. He would ask me questions. It was very short. And it was all because of two things. Number one, because he fought with my mom all the time, and I didn't understand what those fights were at that age. I didn't know. All I knew that they were just going at it, you know, arguing all the time. And I never understood it until years and many years later. I realized why they fought like they did. But yes, my dad was the first. I don't even like calling him my stepdad.
No, now he's your dad.
He reluctantly.
Right.
My mom forced me to go to that game.
Right.
She said, next time your dad asks, you're gonna go to that game.
Go to that game.
And
your mom was a strict disciplinarian. By the way, loved her kids.
Yeah. My mom, I mean, with everything that she's gone through,
right,
it was unbelievable. We knew exactly where we stood with our mom.
She said it was going to happen.
Yeah, if she said that she was going to take the belt out and spank us in front in the middle of the grocery store if we act up, that's exactly what she did.
And let me explain that in those days, children did get spanked.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I'm not condoning hitting with the belt and timeouts. But in those days, that wasn't considered child abuse.
Right. And I made it clear in the book that make no mistake, we never got abused by our parents.
No.
It was just that they were strict back then.
So who did you see? Was it Joe Namath that you saw in that game?
Oh my! It was Joe Namath, Emerson Boozer. It was an unbelievable experience because I walk in this stadium, and I love the game, and I'm sitting and I'm watching these guys, and I'm mesmerized, and I refuse to show any emotion. You know, I'm standing there, you know, and I'm not moving, but I'm like in all I know my eyes were dollar signs. Dollar signs.
And I'm sure he knew.
You know? Oh my! And I tell you.
Well, I'll tell you what I want to do right now. I want to take a few minutes right now to show a trailer that you have, because it's too exciting not to. And then we're going to pick the story up again. So we're going to go to the first video, and just a few minutes long, and share with us what's going on.
All right.
Once that Vernon Turner got through past those first 5 yards through the line of scrimmage, the defensive backs couldn't catch him, and Vernon went all the way for a touchdown.
He's only 27. He wants to settle down. He's had enough turbulence in his life.
One of these days when my career is over with and I'm sitting back and I'm bored as heck, I'm going to write a book. It's going to be a bestseller. Write a story.
The first play, Turner goes 80 yards, and Carson Newman leads this ballgame. This is Vernon Turner, and he is upended at the 10-yard line.
Turner's story began in Brooklyn, New York.
I mean, I used to look out my window, man, and see gang fights, you know? It was terrible.
Turner moved out of Brooklyn, but he couldn't escape pain.
My mom passed away when I was a sophomore in high school. Dad passed away when I was a freshman in college. So Vernon Turner didn't have a chance to, like, really decide. I mean, he had to react. He couldn't sit there and mourn. I didn't get a chance to mourn. I had 2 brothers and 2 sisters to look after. You know, I had to make some quick decisions.
Down out of the power set. Turner breaks free, and Turner gets to the 10-yard line and a first down.
Vernon Turner chose football as his escape. Nature blessed him with great quickness, but at a price.
It has taken me well over 16 years to be okay with following through with this project. The people closest to me are going to be shocked to see me exposing my life in the form of a book. While telling my story, I hope to give a clear enough insight of what my world was like from age 5 to the present, and it is my sincere hope that this story will touch and inspire all who hear it. In some ways, I consider myself a pretty deep person. I tend to analyze and dissect everything, my past, present, and future, all the decisions I've made, and all the things I've done, whether good, bad, or indifferent. All of it has made me the man I am today. It's scary for me to think about how it all started. During my journey, some unbelievable individuals have crossed my path. You will hear about a handful of people that were extremely instrumental in the outcome of who and where I am now. If I had to choose a few words to describe my story, they would have to be sadness, embarrassment, touching, heartbreak, guilt, regret, anger, fear, determination, and relief. What amazes me is that I remember it all like it was yesterday.
Vernon, look at that piece. 20 years ago. How did you know at that point that someday you'd write this book? Did you feel it? Did you know something was going to happen? Tell me that, because I saw your face watching that, and you were moved.
Yeah, because, you know, from where I started at age 5 to where I am now, would have never believed it. Never believed it. I'm just so blessed, so fortunate to be in the position I am.
Naysayers saying?
That was my driving force. You kidding me? I mean, I was one of those I'll show you kids, you know.
So you take adversity, you take a negative, you turn it around, and that's another message, and you make it work for you. And we'll get into that. I want to go back now, because we were talking about your mom. The relationship does become more and more strained.
Yeah.
And Mom did what a lot of mothers do in order to punish you. If you did something wrong,
right,
you weren't allowed to go to practice. You weren't allowed to go to the game.
Right.
And this is building and building. You said that your mom would look at you at times with cold eyes, so cold that you literally had to turn away. Hurtful, hurtful. When you came home from school one day at age 11, went to the bathroom, and your mom was in the bathroom shooting.
That was the first time I've ever seen my mom actually use drugs. That was shocking in itself. But speaking on, had you mentioned in regards to how my mom used to look at me, I mean, it was so cold. I was scared. I really was at times when she would look at me, and it was like she was looking through me. She didn't even see me looking at her. She was looking so hard. So it was just so difficult for me to even look at her. I would just have to look away, you know, and then walk away. And then when I got home that one afternoon after school, rushed home to go to the restroom, opened up the door, and she literally had the needle in her arm. And that was probably the first time I actually yelled at my mother, had the guts to yell at my mother. And I like, why are you doing that to yourself? Why you keep doing that? And she stared at me for about maybe 5 seconds. She says, come in the bathroom, you know. And she proceeded to talk to me. And she started crying, tears coming down her eyes. And I was still angry. I was mad. And then she stopped. When she actually stopped taking it, putting the needle in her arm, she threw it in the sink.
And this bathroom's so small that you're 2 feet away from
and
her.
I was so disgusted by that whole thing that I would like lean away from her to get past her to sit down on a toilet. It was crazy. But she started talking, and she said, you know, you asked me, why do I keep doing this to myself? She said, I'm going to tell you. And she started talking about how she began telling me how great of an athlete she was. And
she was a runner, right?
She was a runner. Oh my, she was a...
And so were you in track.
Yeah, she was a gazelle. I mean, she used to run, and she used to also be in a band. And she said one particular day after band practice, she was walking home, and, you know, 2 guys grabbed her, you know, and took her to inside of an apartment building, 3rd man waiting, and they brutally attacked her. They raped her. And they were going to throw her off that roof. But I guess they heard someone coming, and they threw her to the ground. And, you know, a couple of weeks later, you know, she finds out she's pregnant, you know. And, you know, it's embarrassing, and it's borderline shameful for me to admit, but I'm a product of that. I'm a product of that. And from that moment on, I felt like trash. I felt, you know, and I felt guilty because right then and there, I realized that my mom, the reason why she was looking at me the way she was looking at me sometimes, because I was a reminder of that day. And that was the day that her life changed. She spiraled down and never came back up, you know? And I'm a reminder of that. So for that, you know, I had so much guilt. I had so much regret. I had so much anger. It was just a tough time. I mean, my life changed. Mentally, it was tough.
You are a role model for every child that wasn't expected to live. Do you realize that? Whether it be through that or through something else, you are a role model for that. You are giving hope to every child out there who feels maybe given away, maybe had been adopted, rape. You are a role model for that. Can you see that?
Well, perhaps now.
You can see it now, but at that state,
But at that state,
no,
I didn't.
You became very protective of her.
Yeah,
you were angry if Sam would argue with her,
yeah.
and you took on that role.
Yeah, it was a crazy time. You know. As the years went on, I was more protective of my mother. I was, at the same time, I started falling in love with the game of football, and I was obsessed with it because that was my release. That was my getaway.
You could take that aggression out on that field.
You would think. I mean, I was so tiny. As a freshman, I was 5'6", 97 pounds. And you would think that why would a kid that size be so in love with the game of football? But when I got on that field, I completely turned into a different person. I played with anger. I played with sometimes with bad intentions because I was so upset. And my mom knew how obsessed I was with that game. And that was a way for her, now I know this now, but that was her way of keeping me in line, making sure I did the things that, house comes first. That was the rules.
Family.
House and family comes first. If you didn't take care of that, you don't have this. And I didn't understand that.
You didn't get that.
I didn't get
you were
it.
a child.
All I knew was that what little time I did have to go out and play or play football, she was taking it away, and I started resenting her even more and more, so much that I would wish her dead on a constant basis, you know. So it was tough.
Well, when we come back, rumor has it you even slept with that football when you were a child.
Yeah.
We'll be right back, and we're going to continue with this.
Okay.
Right back. Vernon, you've had so many wonderful people who have come into your life who also made a difference. Right. We have to talk a little bit first about Coach Thatcher, who wouldn't let you give up, who was a man that taught you, and it's the flip that switch. Share that.
Yeah, I use that term even today. Yeah. I use that term. I mean, back when I was playing Pop Warner football on Staten Island, that was probably the toughest time for me because I was babysitting every day. I had to make sure I was home before 3 o'clock so my mom can go and do whatever she was doing to babysit my brothers and sisters. There were times when I even took them to practice. So it got so much that I had to make a decision because I would come to practice late, or I wouldn't come at all. But on Saturdays, they would still play me because I was one of the better of the athletes.
Fast?
I held my own. I did okay. I held my own.
The speed and your tenacity and a tough guy.
Yeah, it was, again, I turned into a different person when I played. And the thing of it was, if you don't practice, you don't play. That was the rule.
Correct.
So my teammates started forming resentment towards me.
Understandable.
And I was so concerned and worried about what they were thinking. I just had it mentally. I was just mentally out of it. I was shot because I didn't want to do that.
You didn't want to do it that way.
So I went to practice one day, and I had my equipment in hand, and I gave it to Coach. I said, Coach, I can't do this anymore. He says, what are you talking about? He says, I said, I have too many things going on at home. I can't play anymore. And I said, thanks for the opportunity, Coach. As I walked away, I started crying. He didn't see me, though. No. You know, it was crazy.
You love this guy.
Yeah, I mean, so...
He actually came to your house.
Well, oh, yeah.
Right?
He was the one that got me on the team.
Couldn't believe that.
So, you know, my mom was home, and so I went over to the park. I was messing around with some other people, hanging out. And the coach came and found me that day.
That's
end of that day. He said, I want to talk to you. And he sat me down. He says, you know, there's a lot of things you're going to do in this world, Mr. Turner. There's one thing you're not going to do is you're not going to quit.
Wow.
You're not going to quit. He says, if I have to move to practice an hour early, I mean an hour later, or if I have to come and get
Pick
you,
you up.
that's exactly what I'll do. So that was my first lesson that I got in life, and that is to never quit, you know. And it, to this day, I use flip the switch. He said use the football, use it as my release, my chance.
Your aggression to get it out.
Yeah, and I think he, just by the way I played, I think he had an idea that some things were going on. But he could, you know, he didn't want to pry.
He didn't want to pry.
No,
He respected
no.
you enough. He saw a child that loved this game, and he knew something was going on, and he was going to help you. He was a mentor to you.
You know what, Gail? I look back even today, and I think, had that man not come to that park and found me, how would my life be right now? You know?
It probably would have been so different.
I would have been.
We want to make this difference.
It
right?
would have been a pattern.
It would have been a pattern.
I would have been quit, just like he said.
Quit.
I'll quit my
Go to
job.
next.
I'll quit my
Quit.
family.
Look at that.
You know, it was a heck of an experience.
All right, now, Mom is still going to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Right. And there's tension at home, and you're trying to help out, and you're trying to keep all the babies together, because now you've got 5,
Yeah.
right?
Total
Siblings.
5.
And Mom, I'm sorry I have to bring this up, but Mom disciplines you. You're not going to go to football practice. You don't even remember exactly, was it practice or a game? Yeah. And Vernon, those were her last words to you.
Yeah. I'll try to share this with you without breaking.
Okay.
But, you know, it was a process. It was a process of time to where the more I fell in love with the game of football, the more my mom used it against me to make sure I did what I was supposed to do. And by the time I got to my freshman year, I couldn't fall asleep without a football underneath my arm. I was so obsessed with the game. And I always felt good after I played, because I was outside of my box. I was outside of reality. I was in my world. I was in my world. And I remember the end of my freshman year. I remember vividly. It was just off-season workout programs, but I was already setting my goals. I was writing it down. I'm going to, you know, run for this amount of yards and that. And I mean, I was just so particular about what my goals. I actually had goals. And I believe I left some dishes or something in the sink, because I don't know what it was, but my mom grounded me from going to off-season workouts. And I remember me staring at her, and she said, don't you look at me that way. That make it 2 weeks. And I went in my room, and I remember me I actually ran to my room, and I went on my knees, and I was praying that my mom would die. I remember that. I remember that vividly, because, you know, I meant it then. I really meant it, that I want this woman to go. I wanted her to go, you know? And
okay, and she did get
72 hours later,
okay,
she was gone.
Okay, and Dad, you found out how much he loved your mom, because afterwards you saw him and you said, I never realized, right, Vernon, how much my dad loved my mother. And from that point forth, wasn't that a beautiful relationship? That was your dad. Now, you brought all the kids together, you were trying to stay in school, and now what happens? You get so good, and you also meet somebody else who becomes a strong mentor in your life. And that would be Coach O, Coach Olivieri.
Well, Coach Olivieri was an unbelievable person. But, Gail, I would not be doing my book any justice or my messages that I'm trying to get across if everyone out, whoever's listening right now, don't hear the whole picture of what happened.
Exactly.
Okay?
And what strength you have. I commend you on the strength you have. To me, it's very strong for a person to share in your heart, to get out there, to say to the audience, this is what I went through, and if I can do it, and I didn't give up, then neither should you. That is where you are a role model. That is where you are helping everybody. If no one gets anything else from the show tonight, they know that Vernon VT is there, he's helping, he's demonstrating, and he's sharing. And he's sharing so that others can go ahead, pay it forward, and help another person. And that's what you're doing. But let's go to Coach O, because he's like a father figure too. Every time something seems to go amiss, later on in college, professional football, he's there for you too. I do know, and I will go over this because we have to continue in our interview, but I know your dad did die a few years later.
Yeah, the beginning of my freshman year in college,
right.
my dad passed away, and it was crazy because we were arguing prior to me leaving to go to college. I bought a car, he didn't approve. And,
things that happen to a lot of kids that ordinary day to day. We do argue with our parents. We do fight over different things. But you guys became extremely close. Now, you went on into college, and Coach O actually picked a smaller school for you. And it came to a point that your Aunt Ann was taking care of the kids.
Aunt Pat.
Aunt Pat, sorry. Aunt Pat was taking care of the kids so that you could go to school. And then there came a time where there just wasn't enough money. So what did you do about that?
Well, I was the disciplinarian.
Yeah,
from
you were the
12 and a half hours away from college. I went to Jefferson City, Tennessee, Carson Newman College.
Different area, right, than New York.
Yeah, it was. It took me a few years to get used to the Southern hospitality.
charm.
Yeah, it was a difficult time for me because it was more adjustments I had to make. But at the end of the day, that was the perfect fit. If I was, to be honest with you, if I had a chance to turn back the clock and redo it over, I would choose Carson Newman again.
Isn't that
That was
terrific?
the opportunity. I met some unbelievable people over there. The coach, Coach Ken Sparks, Coach Dan Webb, Coach Mike Turner. These guys, they helped me be the man. They're just many pieces of a puzzle to make me the man I am
That made
today.
you the person that you are today. So you got a little bit from each of those people.
So it was a tough time, but at the same time, it was a family oriented. That's the reason why I made it, because it was family. It was a family concept,
and you felt the concern, and everybody got together to help one another.
By my third game, my freshman year, I received a call from my brother, and he said that my dad had a stroke.
Right.
And I said, okay, just let me know if he's all right. And a couple of days later, he calls, and I get pulled from practice. And I knew something was wrong, really bad, because they said that don't ever wear your cleats in the building. And I stopped. I was taking my cleats off. Coach said, "Don't worry about that.
Don't worry about it, you know."
And I tell you, he said, call your brother, call your brother." And I called him, and he said, "Dad died," you know. And I went into this mode to where the first thing I thought of, I was numb. First thing I thought of was, what's going to happen to my brothers and sisters? There was no one. There was nobody.
You wanted to keep the family together. That was your goal.
Well, the spooky and the ironic part of that is months before my mom passed, she would always say out of the blue, if anything were to happen to me or your father, make sure you take care of the family, make sure they stay together.
Look at that.
I mean, it was weird.
It was eerie to you.
Yeah, very, very much so. So that's all I thought about, because, you know, it was just so many. From the time my mom passed to the time my dad passed, I wouldn't think about my mother. Right. I refused to think about it.
Right.
But at that moment in time, when my dad died, I remember my mother saying that. I remember that. And it was something to where I fly home that day, and just before I go inside the airport, I go inside the plane, you know, my coach looks at me and he said, "You're going to come back to school. You're coming back." And his eyes watery. Right. And because I wouldn't speak. I couldn't speak.
Right,
I was kind of in shock, you know.
Of course, of course.
So just before I walked off on the plane, I said, Coach, I'm about to lose my family, man. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Right.
You know, so that whole time during that airport ride, I'm thinking, why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me again? You know. So we get through the funeral, whole nine, and I'm stone cold, really, for the most part. My brothers and sisters are trying, you know, they're hurting bad, and
they don't see you crying.
No. I wore
You're
sunglasses.
You're not going to show any.
So
No.
I remember talking to my aunt after the funeral, came to the house, and I asked her if she would stay and care for my brothers and sisters if I went back to school. And she said she would think about it. The next day, she saw me on a porch, and I had my face in my hand because I was wondering what the heck I'm going to do. And I don't know what happened, but she came to me and she says, you get back to school. Well, I'll take care of the kids.
Isn't that
get back to
amazing?
school.
How beautiful is that?
So I gave her a hug and everything, and I was still stone cold. And I was packing, and my sister walks in. While I was packing, my sister Charlene, never forget this. And she said, you just don't care. You know, you never cared about Dad. You just don't care. You didn't cry. You don't care.
Further from
you know?
the truth. Right.
Yeah, so I stared at her. I grabbed my bags, and I said, I do care. And I walked off, and she grabbed me. And she hugged me. And I refused to look at her. And I just grabbed her arm to let her know I'm okay, and I walked out. And that was, you know, an opportunity for me to, when I walked out, and I broke. I broke.
That was it.
But I didn't want them to see.
Exactly.
That,
you had to still have that strong persona. You know? I get it. So
it was, my aunt was the savior. My Aunt Pat, she was a savior. I was able to go to school, and for the 4 years, and she was there for me, you know.
Well, now we're going through a roller coaster of teams. You are the underdog many times. Not totally. Tell me about this. You're saying compound, right? You haven't been in combine. You haven't been invited. Well, now you know.
Well, the thing is, I wasn't a great athlete. I was a good athlete. I worked hard. And the turning point of my life, Gail, was when I received a call the beginning of my senior year and in college. And my aunt said she could no longer care for the family. Right. What are you going to do now? I'm wondering what the heck. I took that call standing up. My knees literally buckled. Yeah. And I didn't know what the heck I was going to do. So I sold all my electronic goods. I started cutting hair, you know, and it wasn't enough. So I had to figure out, that was when I turned to the game I fell in love with. At age 10, I chose the game to save my family.
That is beautiful. Yeah. All right, we're going to go, now with the Denver Broncos, you were a free agent. You went to Tokyo. First time you ever were treated maybe like a star. Yeah. They looked at, and I know another thing I want to mention, because then from there, in 1990, you go to the Buffalo Bills. And you have a ritual. What's your ritual? Well, and many players do have rituals, by the way, correct?
Well, I was a little bit of a different bird.
Would you like to share the ritual?
Sure, absolutely. My thing was, first of all, during game day, I didn't speak to anybody. I just turned into this different person. Everyone knew not to speak to me, especially when I got at the highest level. You know, of course, like I said, I didn't get drafted. I was a journeyman. I didn't, you know, the only reason why I guess I made it is because I knew that no one was willing to die on the football field. If they weren't ready to die on the field, they weren't going to beat me, because I knew that if I didn't make it, my family was gone, and I was gone. I was going to be gone. So I was ready to die on that field. So that was my motivating factor.
You put your heart out there, your body, mentally, physically, and Peyton. Did he have an influence on you there too?
Yeah.
Would you say?
End of my senior year in college, when I decided to turn pro, and I called Fred Oliveri and let him know. I was in the college library, and there was a magazine with a fan page, and my idol, Walter Payton, sitting there. I reached out to him, wrote him a letter.
Sweetness?
Sweetness. And he replied a couple of weeks later, and he gave me some of his training regimens. And the regiments that I went through, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy.
I think you said you cried,
Yeah.
the pain and the crying, because you had to take care of your family. He had you running through the woods and trees, and you were all bruised.
Yeah.
Let's show a video right now. Now, the video I want to show is no person had ever returned a punt or kick for a touchdown in 19 years for the Buccaneers, and it was 81 yards. So let's show that, and then we can see your speed and how tough you are.
Turner is back. Good rush. Just gets it off with a beautiful high kick. Turner at his own 19. Crosses the 30. Still going. Turner's got some room. He's got one man to beat. No flags. Touchdown, Buccaneers. Vernon Turner, an 81-yard return. The first ever punt return for a touchdown in Tampa Bay history.
You're absolutely right. He did a great job of picking up his blockers and got around on the picket fence to the right side and took it all the way to the house.
Turner played for the Lions last year and learned some of his craft from Mel Gray. And the Buccaneers with a 9-0 lead.
Surreal. 81 yards. I can't even imagine what thoughts are going through your mind at this point.
Well, it was a storybook deal, because if anyone knows the full scope of that whole event, you know, the year before I got cut by the Detroit Lions.
Detroit Lions.
And I had my issues over there with Detroit and the head coach. So for me to go to another team and accomplish a feat of that magnitude, I'm not only that I got payback, but I was blessed to be the first man ever to return a punt for a touchdown for the Buccaneers.
Is it true that you looked at Coach Font when you went out there?
It was, again, that was probably the most intense moment the whole week. Okay. It was a very intense week.
You used it, though, to spur you on to do what you had to do.
Yeah, that was a moment to where I knew something huge was going to happen that day. I had no clue what it was going to be. So for that to happen, the way it happened
was extraordinary. That'll be the moment.
The best of all directors could not have written that script that way.
Speaking of directors, movie. Are we going to see this in the movie?
You know,
what's going on there?
You know, God has a plan. I'm not exactly sure at this point of to what magnitude, but I do know that there are talks and there are opportunities out there. I can't get into true details.
That's fine. Who would you like to see play you, if you're allowed to say?
Yeah. I don't know. I like, there's a few actors out there like Derek Luke, who played in Friday Night Lights, or Lance Gross. Yeah, he's a great actor. And then of course all the ladies love that whole Morris Chestnut guy. So
you think?
Yeah, whatever. But you know what? I'm not really focused on that. My goal is to put this project at a global status to where I can help as many people as I possibly can. And if it means go on big screen,
then that's what
exactly
you will do to take it to
that's
that
exactly
level.
what I'm going to have to do.
Did I just say the next level? You know, I have to show how strong you are. I keep saying that. And there's a play where you're in a game, and Stephen Tasker, Mr.
Stephen Tasker.
Mr. Stephen Tasker.
After that hit, I never call him nothing but Mr. Stephen Tasker.
Unbelievable. We have that video, and I'd like to show that. It's a very quick few seconds. But you made the record of one of the top 100 hits to take, didn't you?
I guess.
Let's take a look at that.
Guy with a mammoth hit, and you don't feel a thing, man. It's just like, it's the best. You feel like you could go through the wall and not even feel it, man. You feel invincible. When you get a really good lick on a guy, I mean, you got to give it. Bam! You give him every little extra little bit you can muster up from everything. You wish you could just hold that.
Never die easy, die hard, right?
Yeah, that's one of Walter Payton's sayings.
And that's one of
I
the
live by
things
it.
that you also practice. We only have a few minutes left, but I'd like to go over some of your 10 Commandments, if you will.
Sure.
Because I think that also is going to help so many other people.
Right.
So would you, you know?
Well, just,
Okay,
and I'll elaborate.
You got it. Show love and respect for your parents. Our parents go in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, that's, if anyone who's read my book, they understand why that is number one. That's the reason why I'm doing the things that I'm doing now, because, you know, I fought with both my parents before they went. And I don't want anyone experiencing what I'm experiencing right now.
Right.
You know,
right,
so
right.
that's number one.
Always outwork your opponent. If you know you've outworked your opponent, chances are you're going to outplay them.
Yeah, and that goes, you know, I've never, like I told you, I was never the greatest of athletes. I had to outwork everybody. And because of what I did, I ended up playing a total of 8 years professional football, 6 in the NFL, 2 NFL Europe, and I was blessed to be a part of the Super Bowl 1990 team. And it had nothing to do because I was a great athlete.
Right.
It was because that I worked hard.
Passionate, tenacity, hard work. You actually had your goals. Now, you actually got a ring from that. Even though the Giants beat your team,
Yeah.
you were a rookie, but you got a ring, didn't you?
Yeah, I was very fortunate.
I was excited about
me
that.
personally, I call it the loser's ring.
No.
Everyone else says, "Oh, it's the AFC Championship." No, bull. It is the loser's ring. Because
Consolation.
had we won, we would have gotten this big old
winner's ring.
Yeah. So, but at the same time, I can reflect and enjoy what I
What
have
an
done.
honor. And when did you meet Whitney Houston, who came up and gave you a hug?
Yes, she was actually, she was the one that sung the best national anthem ever sung in any athletic event.
Now, the dry eye in the house, you
Not
said.
one. Not one.
Unbelievable. You say focus on the weak part of your game in order to become a more complete athlete. And I have to say, before you elaborate upon that, you can take all of these commandments and apply to any aspect of your life.
Yeah.
And that will make you a better person.
You don't even have to include sports.
Right, right. That's what I'm saying.
And that's the reason why I wrote the way I wrote it. You know, you look at the Michael Jordans and you look at the LeBron James and the guys that are all at that echelon elite status.
Right.
And it's because they worked on the weak part of their game. They didn't harp on the things that they can do great. They always worked on the weak part. That's the reason why it's
Keep
so important.
after it.
Yeah.
Never cut corners. And if you start something, I love this, finish it. Everyone has to pay his dues. No free rides.
No, not at all. I mean, you're going to get, the only thing that's going to be given to you, and I keep saying this over and over, and that is opportunities. And what you do with those opportunities is totally up to you.
That's right.
So that's huge on my part.
The way you practice is the way you play. If you develop good habits, chances are you'll get out there and you'll do the same thing. Running out of time, I'm going to go a little bit more. Always respect your opponent. Every good athlete loves to be underestimated.
Oh, yeah.
And isn't that the truth?
Absolutely. I mean,
you can't go by size. No. You can't go by they're not paying attention, right?
One of the reasons why I did the things that I did throughout my career was the fact that people looked at me as an athlete and they measured me by my stature. Right. You can't do that, because if you did that, you're going to lose every time. You can't measure my heart.
No, no.
So,
and that's what keeps people going.
Absolutely.
No matter how down you get, the sun will come out.
Absolutely.
You try it again. When you lead by example, you can become one of the most powerful and productive leaders in the world. And when you do speak, that you have, it's not by words, it's by your actions.
It's what you do speak so well. No one needs to hear what you have to say. And my thing is that there's just so many other young athletes that are so vulnerable right now that are watching these guys out there on television. Right. And it's just so important that we give the right messages out there to them. You know, it's very important for me.
Interesting. You say respect your teammates, then your coaches, and then the game.
Then the program. Yeah. My thing is that you're in the battlefield with those guys each and every day. You got to gain the respect with those guys first. Those coaches, you got to trust them, and they got to trust you. So you want to build that relationship second. And then the program, you got to make sure that you're representing that program the right way, because there's so many eyes on you. And everything you do is magnified. It doesn't matter what it is. What's his name? Mr. Manziel? Every little thing that he does is magnified.
Is magnified.
So you got to watch what you do and say.
Absolutely. No drugs. Your body is your temple. Honor and respect it. Take care of it so you can be in great shape throughout. Present yourself with class and pay it forward.
Yeah, that is...
I think we're going to have to close on that note, but always pay it forward, as you have, and making a tremendous difference in the lives of all. I know you made a difference in my life.
Well,
I want to thank you so much for that.
I really do. Thank you, sweetie.
Thank you.
Thank you.